The first time Jaehyun said he didn't do relationships, we were lying in his bed at 3 in the morning. His apartment smelled like his cedar cologne and the takeout we'd demolished hours before. I was tracing invisible patterns on his chest, pretending my heart wasn't hammering against my ribs. "I need you to understand something, Minho," he'd said, his voice still rough from sleep. It's just physical. I like you, I do. But I can't do the relationship thing again. Not after Sung. His ex-alpha who'd left him for someone else after 3 years together. I'd watched Jaehyun piece himself back together over months of friendship, seen how he'd built walls so high around his heart that I wondered if anyone would ever scale them again. I get it, I'd lied even as something inside me withered. No strings. Just friends who happened to sleep together sometimes. That was 6 months ago. Now, I stood in my tiny bathroom, staring at 2 pink lines that were destroying everything. My hands shook so badly I nearly dropped the test. This couldn't be happening. This wasn't supposed to happen. Except it was always going to happen, wasn't it? Because 3 months ago, when Jaehyun had asked if I was taking my suppressants, I'd looked him straight in the eye and said yes. I told myself it was just once. That the odds were so low. That maybe, if something happened, he'd realize we could be more than just bodies in the dark. God, I was so stupid. So desperately, pathetically stupid. My phone buzzed on the sink. Jaehyun's name lit up the screen. "Still good for tonight? Been thinking about you all day." My stomach lurched. I barely made it to the toilet before I was sick. I started avoiding him after that. Made excuses that felt flimsy even to my own ears. Work was busy. I was coming down with something. My mother needed help. Each lie tasted worse than the last, but what else could I do? Every time I saw him, the truth clawed at my throat, desperate to escape. "Are you mad at me?" Jaehyun asked one evening, cornering me after I'd dodged 3 of his invitations. We were at our friend Do-hyun's birthday party, and I'd been trying to leave early. No, of course not. I couldn't meet his eyes. "I've just been tired lately." Tired? He didn't sound convinced. His alpha senses were probably picking up on my anxiety, the way my scent had changed. "Minho, if you want to end this, just say so. I told you from the beginning." "I know what you told me." The words came out sharper than I intended. "I'm not trying to end anything. I need some space right now." Something flickered across his face. Hurt, maybe, though it was gone so quickly I might have imagined it. He stepped back, shoulders stiffening. "Sure." He left without saying goodbye, and I spent the rest of the party in Do-hyun's bathroom, crying silently into a towel. At 8 weeks, I couldn't button my jeans anymore. At 9, the smell of coffee made me run from my favorite cafe. At 10, my boss commented that I looked pale and asked if I was eating enough. I went to the doctor alone. Sat in the waiting room surrounded by happy couples, their hands intertwined, their futures certain. The Omega next to me was glowing, her alpha partner rubbing her back and whispering something that made her laugh. I looked away, blinking hard. "Everything looks good," Dr. Kim said, showing me the ultrasound screen. A tiny blob, barely recognizable as human, but with a heartbeat that filled the room. Strong and healthy. "Do you have any questions?" I had a million questions. How do you tell someone they're going to be a father when they explicitly said they never wanted to be? How do you apologize for a betrayal this enormous? How do you raise a child alone when you're barely keeping yourself together? "No," I whispered. "No questions." I made it 5 more days before Jaehyun showed up at my apartment unannounced. I'd just gotten out of the shower, hair still dripping, when his knock echoed through my tiny space. "We need to talk." He brushed past me before I could protest, and I was suddenly aware of how small my apartment was, how his presence filled every corner. "You've been avoiding me for almost 2 months now, Minho. 2 months of excuses and canceled plans and one-word texts. If you caught feelings and can't handle the casual thing anymore, just tell me. I deserve that honesty." Honesty. The word was a knife between my ribs. He stood in my living room, arms crossed, looking every bit the powerful alpha he was. Vice president at a marketing firm. Confident. Controlled. Everything I wasn't. His dark eyes searched my face, And I watched his expression shift as he really looked at me for the first time in weeks. "You've lost weight," he said, and his voice had changed. Softer now, concerned. "Minho, what's going on? Are you sick?" The concern was what broke me. I'd prepared for his anger, his rejection, his coldness. But tenderness? I had no defense against that. "I'm pregnant." The words fell out of me like stones. 10 weeks. And before you ask, yes, it's yours. There's been no one else. There's never been anyone else. The silence that followed was suffocating. I watched the color drain from his face, watched him process the information, watched the exact moment understanding dawned. "But you said..." He took a step back, then another. "You told me you were on suppressants." I lied. 2 words. They hung between us like an executioner's blade. Jaehyun stared at me like I was a stranger. Maybe I was. Maybe the person he thought he knew would never have done something like this. "You lied." He repeated my words slowly, like he was trying to understand a foreign language. "You deliberately lied about being on suppressants. You let me think." His voice cracked, and he pressed his palms against his eyes. "Oh my God, Minho. What did you do?" "I'm sorry." It sounded pathetic even to my own ears. "I know sorry doesn't fix this, but I am. I'm so sorry." "Sorry." His hands dropped, and the look on his face made me want to disappear. "You trapped me. You made a decision about my entire future without my consent. Do you understand that? Do you have any idea what you've done? I didn't mean for this to happen." "Yes, you did." His voice rose, echoing off my apartment walls. "That's exactly what lying about birth control means, Minho. You knew the risk. You knew what could happen, and you did it anyway because what? Because you thought it would make me want you? Make me love you?" The word "love" felt like a slap. "That's not." "Then why?" He advanced on me and I backed up until I hit the wall. He stopped just short of crowding me, but his scent, sharp with anger and betrayal, overwhelmed everything. "Explain it to me. Make it make sense. Because right now, all I can think is that you're the kind of person who manipulates and lies to get what they want, and I don't even know who you are anymore." Tears burned my eyes, but I forced them back. I didn't deserve to cry. Not when I caused this. I had feelings for you. Real feelings. And I knew you'd never feel the same way, that you'd never want more than what we had. So I thought. I don't know what I thought. That maybe if something happened, you'd see. See what? That we could be a family? That I'd suddenly forget everything I told you and fall at your feet? He laughed, bitter and harsh. "I was honest with you from day one. I told you exactly what I could offer, and you agreed. You looked me in the eye and agreed, and all of it was a lie." "Not all of it. My feelings were real. They are real." "Your feelings don't matter." The words exploded out of him and I flinched. "Don't you get that? Your feelings don't give you the right to make choices about my body, my life, my future. You had no right, Minho. No right at all." He turned away, hands fisted in his hair, and for a long moment there was only the sound of his ragged breathing. "I thought you were different," he said quietly. "After Sung, after everything, I thought you were someone I could trust. Someone who actually cared about me as a person, not just as some prize to be won or trapped." "I do care about you." "No." He spun back around and his eyes were wet. "You care about the idea of me. The fantasy you built in your head where I'm yours. But you don't actually care about me because if you did, you would never have done this." The accusation hung between us, and I had no defense. He was right. In my desperation to keep him close, I'd violated his trust in the worst possible way. "What do you want me to do?" My voice was barely a whisper. "Do you want me to not have it?" Something flickered across his face, pain, maybe horror, but it was gone quickly. "Is that what you want?" "No." The answer came without thought. "No. Despite everything, I want this baby. But I won't ask anything from you. I can do this alone." "Alone." He laughed again, that same bitter sound. "You think it's that simple? That you can just absolve me of responsibility because you feel guilty? I'm trying to give you an out." "I don't want an out." The words seemed to surprise him as much as they surprised me. He exhaled slowly, visibly trying to calm himself. I don't want an out. That's my child too. But I don't know how to process any of this. I don't know how to look at you right now. Then don't. My throat was tight. Just go. Take whatever time you need. He studied me for a long moment, and I couldn't read his expression. Then he walked to the door, paused with his hand on the knob. Did you ever actually care about what I wanted? Or was I just a means to an end? Of course I cared. I care so much it hurts. Funny way of showing it. The door clicked shut behind him, and I was alone. I didn't hear from him for 6 days. 6 days of silence that felt like drowning. I went to work, came home, stared at my phone. Ate when I remembered to. Slept in fits and starts, waking up from dreams where Jaehyun looked at me with love instead of betrayal. On the 7th day, he knocked on my door at 8 in the morning. He looked terrible. Dark circles under his eyes, hair uncombed, wearing clothes that looked slept in. But his expression was carefully blank, controlled. I've thought about this, he said without preamble. Here's what's going to happen. I'll pay for all medical expenses, help with costs after the birth. I'll be on the birth certificate if you want, contribute to child support. But I can't, he swallowed hard. I can't be involved beyond that. I can't play house and pretend everything's okay when I feel like this. Each word was a small death. I'd expected it, prepared for it even, but hearing it spoken aloud was different. Okay, I managed. I'll need a paternity test. After the birth. That hurt more than it should have. You don't trust me? His look was answer enough. Can you blame me? No. No, I can't blame you. I'll have my lawyer draw up an agreement. Keep everything official, clear boundaries. Is that acceptable? Boundaries. Agreements. Lawyers. Everything clinical and cold, when all I'd wanted was warmth. That's fine. He nodded once, turned to leave, then stopped. For a heartbeat, I thought he might say something else, something that would make this hurt less. But he just walked away, and I closed the door on whatever we'd been, whatever we might have had if I'd just been honest. I slid down to the floor, wrapped my arms around my knees, and finally let myself break. 3 months passed like winter, cold, gray, and endless. Jaehyun kept his word. Money appeared in my account every month. Text messages arrived with appointment reminders, nothing more. Doctor appointment Thursday, 2 p.m. Did you get the check? Let me know if you need anything. Professional. Distant. Exactly what he'd promised. I hated it. My belly swelled as autumn turned to winter. At 20 weeks, I could feel small flutters inside me, the baby moving. I'd sit alone in my apartment, hand pressed to my stomach, wondering if Jaehyun ever thought about this little life we'd created. If he lay awake at night like I did, imagining tiny fingers and the weight of a newborn in his arms. Probably not. The doctor's office waiting room felt especially lonely on a Tuesday afternoon. I checked in, took my seat, and pulled out my phone to scroll through nothing. Just something to do with my hands. Minho! My heart stopped. I looked up to find Jaehyun standing in the doorway, looking as shocked as I felt. He wore his work clothes, crisp shirt, tie loosened at the collar, like he'd come straight from the office. What are you doing here? I asked. He shifted his weight, uncomfortable. You have an anatomy scan today. I thought I should. I wanted to make sure everything was okay. You didn't have to come. I know. He sat down 2 chairs away from me, maintaining careful distance. But it's important. This appointment shows if the baby's developing correctly, right? I nodded, too surprised to form words. We sat in awkward silence until the nurse called my name. I stood, expecting him to stay in the waiting room, but he followed. Is it okay if I? He asked at the door. Yes. Of course. The ultrasound room was dim, the gel cold on my exposed belly. The technician moved the wand across my skin, and suddenly the screen filled with movement. Arms, legs, a perfect profile, fingers splayed like stars. There's your baby, the technician said cheerfully. Nice strong heartbeat. Everything looks great. Would you like to know the sex? I glanced at Jaehyun. He was staring at the screen like he'd seen a miracle, his eyes wide and shining. "It's a girl," the technician continued. "Congratulations." "A girl," Jaehyun whispered. His hand moved involuntarily toward the screen, then dropped. "She's so small. She'll get bigger. Trust me." The technician smiled. "Would you like pictures?" We left with a strip of grainy black and white images. Jaehyun held them carefully, like they might dissolve. "Thank you," he said outside, "for letting me be there." "She's yours too." The words hurt to say. "You have every right." He looked like he wanted to say something else, but instead he just nodded and walked away. I watched him go, pressing my hand against the flutter in my belly. After that, he started showing up more. Not every appointment, but enough that I stopped being surprised. He'd sit in the waiting room, drive me home after, ask careful questions about how I was feeling. We never talked about anything real. Never mentioned the fight, the betrayal, the enormous hurt between us. We existed in this strange limbo, connected by the baby growing inside me, but separated by everything else. One evening at 24 weeks, I struggled to carry groceries up to my third-floor apartment. My back ached, my feet were swollen, and the bag split just as I reached my door, sending oranges rolling everywhere. "Damn it," I muttered, trying to bend down and failing spectacularly. "Let me help." I jerked upright. Jaehyun stood at the top of the stairs, already crouching to gather the scattered fruit. "What are you? How did you?" "I was driving by. Saw you struggling." He collected everything efficiently, then noticed my broken doorknob. "This doesn't lock properly." "I know. Landlord keeps promising to fix it." His jaw tightened. "You're here alone with a broken lock? Minho, that's not safe." "I'm fine. I've managed this long without." "Without what?" "Without me." The words were sharp. He exhaled slowly. "I'm getting a locksmith out here tomorrow. And you need to start accepting help. You can't carry groceries up 3 flights of stairs when you're 6 months pregnant." "I don't need you to rescue me. This isn't about rescue. It's about basic safety." He pushed past me into the apartment, started putting groceries away like he'd done it 100 times before. Like he belonged here. "Jaehyun." My voice cracked. "What are you doing?" His hand stilled on a box of tea. "I don't know. I keep telling myself to maintain distance, keep boundaries. But then I think about you here alone and I can't." He turned to face me. "I can't stop caring. Even when I want to." The admission hung between us, fragile and dangerous. "You hate me," I whispered. "I wish I did." His smile was sad. "It would be so much easier if I could just hate you and move on. But I can't. I'm angry, I'm hurt, I feel betrayed every time I think about what you did. But I also..." He stopped himself. "Never mind." "Say it." "No. Because if I say it, everything gets more complicated." My daughter chose that moment to kick, hard enough that I gasped and pressed my hand to my belly. Jaehyun was beside me instantly, his hand hovering near mine. "Is she okay?" "What's wrong?" "She's fine. Just kicking." "Here." I took his hand before I could think better of it, pressed it against where our daughter was moving. His face transformed. Wonder replaced everything else. The anger, the hurt, the carefully maintained distance. "She's strong. Takes after her father." His thumb traced a small circle on my belly, and when he looked at me, his eyes were full of things neither of us could say. We stood there, his hand on my stomach, barely breathing, until the moment shattered. "I should go," he said, but didn't move. "Jaehyun, please don't. Don't say whatever you're about to say, because I'm barely holding on here." He left, but this time he paused at the door. "I'll be here tomorrow. With the locksmith." And he was. The pain started at 2 in the morning, 3 weeks before my due date. Sharp, breath-stealing contractions that woke me from restless sleep. I lay there for 20 minutes, timing them with shaking hands, before admitting this was real. I called Jaehyun without thinking. He answered on the first ring, voice rough with sleep. "Minho? What's wrong?" I think. Another contraction hit, and I couldn't speak through it. "I'm coming. Stay on the phone with me." He talked the entire drive, his voice the only anchor I had. By the time he burst through my door, I'd given him a key weeks ago after the locksmith incident. I was doubled over, tears streaming down my face. "It's too early," I gasped. "Something's wrong. She's not supposed to come yet. 3 weeks early is okay. Babies come when they're ready." He helped me to his car with steady hands, but I caught the fear in his scent. "You're going to be fine. She's going to be fine." The hospital was a blur of bright lights and urgent voices. They got me into a room, checked me, and the doctor's face was grave. "The baby's heart rate is dropping during contractions. We need to monitor closely. If it continues, we may need to do an emergency cesarean." Terror seized me. "No. Please, she has to be okay." Jaehyun gripped my hand so tightly it hurt. "What can we do? How do we help her?" The hours that followed were a nightmare. Each contraction brought that awful dip in our daughter's heartbeat, the monitors beeping slowing until I wanted to scream. Jaehyun never left my side. He breathed with me, wiped sweat from my forehead, whispered encouragements even as his own face went pale with fear. "I can't do this," I sobbed during the worst of it. "I can't." "Yes, you can." His forehead pressed against mine. "You're the strongest person I know, Minho. You can do this." "I'm not strong. I'm a liar and a manipulator and—" "Stop." His voice was fierce. "Whatever else happened, you're here now, fighting for our daughter. That's what matters. Our daughter. Not the baby or your pregnancy. Our daughter." At hour 9, the doctor made the call. "We need to do a cesarean. Now." Everything moved fast after that. They wheeled me to surgery, Jaehyun running alongside in borrowed scrubs. He held my hand while they prepped me, his eyes visible above his mask, terrified but steady. "I'm scared," I admitted as they began. "Me too. But we're doing this together." He kissed my knuckles. "I'm not going anywhere." The moment they lifted her into view, time stopped. She was tiny, wrinkled, screaming with outrage at being born. "Perfect. She's okay," the doctor said. "A little early but healthy. Good lungs on this one." They placed her on my chest for one brief, eternal moment. Dark hair plastered to her head, eyes squeezed shut, fists waving. I looked at Jaehyun and found him crying silently, staring at our daughter like she'd hung the moon. "She's perfect," he whispered. "Minho, she's perfect." Recovery was hard. My body ached, hormones crashed like waves, and exhaustion lived in my bones. But Jaehyun stayed. Through the first night when she wouldn't stop crying, through my breakdown when I couldn't get her to latch for feeding, through the terrifying moment when we thought she'd stopped breathing but she was just sleeping deeply. It was 3 a.m. on our second night in the hospital. I'd just finished feeding her, and Jaehyun was holding her against his chest, swaying gently. The look on his face, pure love mixed with wonder, broke something open inside me. "I'm sorry," I said into the quiet. "I know I've said it before, but I need to say it again. What I did was unforgivable. I violated your trust and your autonomy, and I let my feelings justify something inexcusable. You deserved honesty, and I gave you manipulation. I'm so sorry." He didn't speak for a long moment, just kept swaying with our daughter. "I was falling in love with you," he finally said. "Before all of this. That's why it hurt so badly when you told me the truth. Because I'd been lying to myself for months, pretending what we had was just physical when really, I was terrified of getting hurt again." My heart stuttered. "What?" After Sung left, I convinced myself I didn't want or need love. That casual was safer. But then there was you, funny, kind, understanding you. And I was falling, Minho. I was falling so hard, and I kept pushing it down, hiding behind our agreement. He looked at me finally, eyes red. "When you told me about the pregnancy, about the lie, it confirmed every fear I had. That I couldn't trust my judgment. That I'd chosen wrong again. That love was just another word for getting destroyed." "Jaehyun, let me finish. Please." He adjusted our daughter carefully. "I've spent these months trying to hate you. Trying to maintain distance. But every time I saw you, every time I felt her kick, every moment we shared, I couldn't. Because underneath the anger and betrayal, I was still falling. And that terrified me more than anything. Tears spilled down my cheeks. I don't deserve your forgiveness. No, you don't. His honesty hurt, but I needed it. What you did was wrong, and we both have to live with that. But here's what I realized tonight, holding our daughter. I have a choice. I can let what happened define us, poison whatever future we might have. Or I can acknowledge the hurt, work through it, and choose something different. What are you saying? I'm saying I want to try. Really try. Not because of obligation or the baby, but because despite everything, I love you. I'm still angry. I'm still hurt. We'd need counseling, real work to rebuild trust. But if you're willing, yes. The word came out choked. Yes, to all of it. I'll do whatever it takes. 3 months later, our daughter, Hannah, meaning one, and, together, slept in her crib while Jaehyun and I collapsed on the couch. His apartment had become our apartment, slowly filled with baby things and the life we were building. She smiled at me today, he said, exhausted but glowing. A real smile. Probably gas. It was not gas. It was a smile of recognition and love. I laughed, leaning into his warmth. We'd started couples therapy 2 weeks after Hannah was born. Some sessions were brutal, bringing up every hurt and fear. But slowly, carefully, we were learning to trust again. I love you, I said, because I could now. Because he knew, and he stayed anyway. I love you too. He kissed my temple. Even when you don't load the dishwasher correctly. There's no correct way. Hannah's cry cut through our bickering. We looked at each other and laughed. Your turn, we said simultaneously. He went, and I watched him lift our daughter with practiced ease, murmuring soft words. This wasn't the future I'd imagined when I made that terrible choice. It was harder, messier, built on a foundation we'd had to repair piece by painful piece. But it was real, and it was ours.